There is a plant that refuses to die. You can rip it from the ground, plow it under, poison the soil, and it will return the next spring as if nothing happened. For 400 years, it fed families across 2 continents. One planting lasted a generation. Your grandfather could dig tubers from the same patch his grandfather planted. No seed purchases, no replanting, no permission required. Then in 1950, agricultural policy changed. Extension offices stopped recommending it. Seed catalogs dropped it. Universities scrubbed it from their programs. Within a single decade, a crop that had sustained millions vanished from American agriculture. They did not remove it because it stopped working. They removed it because it worked too well. A plant that feeds a family for 20 years without buying anything generates no profit. And what generates no profit must be forgotten. This is the story of the Jerusalem artichoke. Welcome to Traditional Harvest. Before we dig into this vault, if you believe this knowledge should survive, subscribe, and hit the bell. Every share plants a seed they cannot uproot. The story begins in 1605 along the rocky shores of Cape Cod. Samuel de Champlain, the French explorer who would later found Quebec, stepped onto land controlled by the Algonquin people. They offered him food. Among the dishes was a knobby root unlike anything European. The Algonquin called it Kai Shukpanuk, the sun root. Champlain bit into it raw, crisp, nutty, slightly sweet. He wrote that it tasted like artichoke hearts. He filled barrels with tubers and sailed home to France. Within 20 years, this strange root was growing in gardens from Paris to Rome. But Champlain was not discovering anything. He was witnessing 3,000 years of cultivation. The Jerusalem artichoke, Helianthus tuberosus, is native to the Great Lakes region and eastern woodlands of North America. It is not from Jerusalem. It is not an artichoke. The name is a corruption of the Italian word girasole, meaning sunflower. That is what it is, a sunflower. But while common sunflowers store energy in seeds, this species stores it underground, in tubers. Dozens of them, clustered beneath each plant like buried treasure. The Iroquois had a story. When Sky Woman fell to earth and died giving birth to twin sons, the first Jerusalem artichoke sprouted from her feet, a gift of food born from sacrifice. The plant was sacred. It was also practical. One planting fed a village indefinitely. The tubers spread through underground rhizomes, creating networks that expanded every year. Harvest what you need, leave the rest. Next autumn, twice as many wait. This is what industrial agriculture cannot tolerate, a crop that multiplies without input. The numbers are staggering. A single Jerusalem artichoke plant produces 3 to 6 pounds of tubers. 1 acre can yield 15 to 20 tons. Compare that to potatoes at 8 to 10 tons per acre. In caloric output, university trials recorded 30 million calories per acre for Jerusalem artichokes versus 20 million for potatoes. The tubers require no irrigation in most climates. They need no fertilizer. They suppress weeds through sheer density. Pests largely ignore them, and disease rarely touches them. And they survive cold that kills nearly everything else. The tubers overwinter in frozen ground down to minus 30 degrees Celsius. You can harvest them in January by breaking through ice. They wait in the soil like a savings account that never depletes. In 1805, the Lewis and Clark expedition was starving in the Dakota Territories. Sacagawea saved them. She knew where mice cached Jerusalem artichokes for winter. She dug up their stores, roasted the tubers over fire, and fed the explorers who would have died without her knowledge. That knowledge came from her people. The Shoshone had cultivated these roots for centuries. So had the Lakota, the Pawnee, the Omaha. Every tribe from the Mississippi to the Rockies understood what this plant offered: food security that required almost nothing. When the tubers reached Europe, peasants planted them immediately. The potato was still feared. Many believed it caused leprosy because it grew underground like disease. But the Jerusalem artichoke came with an endorsement. Champlain had eaten it. Nobility served it at banquets. It spread through France, Germany, Italy, and England within decades, and it performed miracles on exhausted soil. European farmland in the 1600s was dying. Centuries of wheat and barley had stripped nutrients. Famines struck every few years. But Jerusalem artichokes grew where nothing else would. Their deep roots broke compacted earth. Their fallen leaves returned organic matter. Plant them in dead fields, and within 3 years, the soil recovered enough for other crops. Farmers called it the earth healer. By the 1700s, millions of Europeans depended on it, not as a delicacy, as survival. Then the potato won, not because it was better, because it was easier to control. Potatoes are larger, smoother, uniform. They store for months in cool cellars. They do not spread on their own. You must replant every year by purchasing seed potatoes. Governments could tax potato harvests. Merchants could warehouse them. Markets could standardize them. The potato fit the emerging systems of industrial commerce. Jerusalem artichokes did not. They spread without permission. They could not be warehoused because they spoiled within weeks of harvest. Every tuber was a different size and shape. And worst of all, farmers did not need to buy seed. Once planted, the crop renewed itself forever. No annual purchases, no dependency. Independence. By 1800, agricultural advisors were already calling Jerusalem artichokes peasant food, animal feed, a crop for those who could not afford better. The same pattern erased amaranth in Mexico and destroyed quinoa in Peru. Indigenous crops that enable independence are systematically devalued. But the Jerusalem artichoke refused to disappear. It waited, refused. World War I, Germany was blockaded. The winter of 1916, the turnip winter, killed thousands. Potatoes had failed from blight. People ate livestock feed to survive. In forgotten corners, in ditches and hedgerows, Jerusalem artichokes still grew. They could not be blockaded because they were already in the ground. They could not be seized because no one had inventoried them. Families who remembered the old knowledge survived. World War II was worse. Nazi occupation forces seized 80% of French agricultural output. Potatoes went to German soldiers. The French were left with rutabagas, turnips, and topinambours, Jerusalem artichokes. For 5 years, occupied families survived on what they once fed to pigs. They hated every bite. The tubers were small and dirty. They caused intestinal gas, but they kept children alive when everything else was confiscated. After liberation, an entire generation refused to eat them. The vegetable that saved millions became a symbol of humiliation. In France, grandparents who survived the war would not allow topinambours in their homes. The trauma was too fresh, the memory too bitter, and that trauma created an opening. In 1950, American agricultural policy shifted decisively toward industrialization. The USDA and land-grant universities promoted crops that required inputs. Hybrid corn demanded fertilizer. Wheat varieties needed pesticides. Soybeans required machinery. Every recommendation came with a purchase. Seed companies, chemical manufacturers, and equipment dealers wrote the curriculum. Jerusalem artichokes vanished from extension bulletins. They disappeared from seed catalogs. Research funding dried up. Within a decade, a crop that had fed families for 20 years from a single planting was functionally erased from American agriculture. Not because it failed, because it succeeded without profit. The nutrition alone should have saved it. Jerusalem artichokes contain 76 calories per 100 grams. They provide 2 grams of protein, more potassium than bananas, and significant amounts of iron, copper, and B vitamins. But the real treasure is inulin. The tubers are 15 to 20% inulin by weight, one of the highest concentrations in any food plant. Inulin is a prebiotic fiber. It passes through your stomach undigested and reaches your colon intact. There, beneficial bacteria feast on it. They multiply. They produce short-chain fatty acids that lower inflammation, strengthen gut barriers, and improve mineral absorption. Studies show inulin supports immune function, reduces constipation, and may prevent certain cancers. And inulin does not spike blood sugar. Unlike potato starch, which converts rapidly to glucose, inulin releases fructose slowly. Diabetics who ate Jerusalem artichokes in clinical trials showed improved glycemic control. Some reported reducing their insulin needs by half. Folk medicine validated by modern science. The only drawback is gas. Inulin ferments in the gut, producing flatulence in people unaccustomed to it. The solution is simple. Cook the tubers longer. Heat converts inulin to fructose, or eat small amounts and let your microbiome adapt. Within 2 weeks, most people tolerate them easily, but industrial food systems have no patience for adaptation. They demand instant satisfaction. So the nickname spread fartichoke, a joke that buried a superfood. In the 1980s, a California produce broker named Frida Kaplan saw past the joke. She stared at knobby tubers gathering dust in her warehouse. The name was killing sales. Jerusalem artichoke. Confusing. Wrong. She renamed it Sunchoke, trademarked the name, and packaged the tubers with recipes. Sales increased 600%. High-end restaurants discovered them. Chefs served sunchoke soup, roasted sunchokes with herbs, pureed sunchokes with cream. A forgotten peasant food became a delicacy. But delicacy status is a trap. It keeps the crop marginal, expensive, inaccessible to the families who need it most. The truth is simpler and more radical. Anyone can grow Jerusalem artichokes. Plant 3 tubers in October. By the following October, harvest 30. Leave some in the ground. The next year, harvest more. The patch expands. The yield increases. After 5 years, a small garden bed produces enough tubers to feed a family through winter. After 20 years, the same patch is still producing without a single seed purchase, without fertilizer, without pesticides, without irrigation. This is what they erased. Not a crop, a model, a way of living that does not require dependency. Climate change is accelerating. Droughts are intensifying. Heat waves are killing crops bred for stability. The agricultural systems feeding 8 billion people were designed for conditions that no longer exist. When those systems fail, and they will fail, what survives? The Jerusalem artichoke was built for chaos. It tolerates drought. It survives freezing. It grows in poor soil. It needs nothing from industrial supply chains. It has waited underground for 70 years since 1950, since they decided profit mattered more than resilience. The tubers are still there, in ditches, along roadsides, in abandoned lots and forgotten gardens. The plant they called a weed is the crop that will not die. Every fragment regenerates. Every tuber sprouts. You cannot eradicate it without poison, and even then it often returns. That persistence is the lesson. Abundance does not require permission. Perennials do not require purchases. Food security does not require dependency. They removed it from the catalogs, but they could not remove it from the earth. The Jerusalem artichoke is still growing, still spreading, still waiting for hands willing to dig. You do not need their permission to plant it. You do not need their seed catalogs. You do not need their supply chains. Plant 3 tubers this autumn. Harvest 30 next autumn. A lifetime of food from a single planting. This is what they tried to make you forget. Now you remember. If this vault opens something in you, subscribe to Traditional Harvest and hit the bell. Share this with someone who needs to remember what we almost lost. The next vault opens soon.